Hello, and welcome to the Outlier and Adapt podcast, the go-to show for anyone passionate about enhancing design and building in Oz. I'm Anthony, the founder of Outlier, and I'm here with my co-host Jess from Adapt Design Group. We're both deeply committed to designing homes that are not only aesthetically pleasing, but also perform exceptionally well. We regularly sit down to discuss home design and occasionally joined by industry experts. Our goal is to educate and inspire Australians on the possibilities of creating homes that are healthy, comfortable, and energy efficient. Whether you're planning to build your dream home, renovate your current space, or just keen to learn about sustainable design, we invite you to join us each episode on your favorite podcast platform. We hope you'll join us on this exciting journey to build better homes.
In today's episode, we have the pleasure of hosting Tad Hendry, a co-founder of Adapt Design Group, mentor, educator, and a master in energy efficient and sustainable building and design. Tad's journey is nothing short of remarkable, originating in carpentry and evolving into designing energy efficient homes, including for his own family, blending those practical skills with sustainable practices. Not just confined to houses, Tad's expertise stretches from house framing to the grand scales of theatre and TV set construction. We highlight throughout the conversation the importance of climate and environment-specific building design. We really enjoyed this conversation with Tad, and we hope listeners get a great deal of helpful information just as we did.
All right, episode 3 of the Outlier podcast. I'm Jess Cuman here with Anthony Jenkins from Outlier Studios, and it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Tad Hendry, co-founder of Adapt Design Group, a mentor of mine. I've known him for a very long time. He's taught me almost everything I know about energy efficiency and sustainable design. So let's get into it. Tad Hendry.
How are you guys? Great to be here.
Very good, thanks, mate. You want let's get stuck right in. Let's tell us a bit about yourself, who you are, and what you do.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a husband, a father. What I do in my day job, currently I am a building designer, working part-time from home these days. I've just putting the finishing touches on my fourth family home. It's a 8.5 star energy efficient house it's harnessed up to 14 kilowatts of solar and a battery. And this is my forever home. So moving into semi-retirement. So the home actually, it supports itself with all its energy needs. We're going to harness that up to an EV shortly. And the home will be totally fossil fuel free.
Wow.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. And I might just, for listeners, just clarify, you reside in the Cape itself as well, don't you, Tad?
Yes, lived at Cape Patterson for 30 years. When I first got married, my wife and I moved here. I didn't want to live in the big city of Wonthaggi.
Yep.
Cape Patterson was a perfect choice.
Yeah, great. I might also just get you to maybe go a bit further back in time here and talk about your origin stories. Where did you start? Because I know it wasn't in design initially.
No. I after leaving school, it was back in the 70s. Things in the country weren't economically great. We had youth unemployment was running at 25%.
Wow.
Inflation rate was double digits. Basically it was a mess. So when I was about to leave school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and all the careers advisors advised all the kids at that stage to go to university.
Yep.
So I did that for 12 months. Lived in a small town called Currumbara. There wasn't much going on there, and going from there to the city was an absolute culture shock, and what I was doing was not me at all. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so I drifted back home and started off my working life actually working in a sawmill. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from there I started doing handyman stuff, and I was actually apprenticed to my father, who was not a builder but had building experience, and I got through my carpentry apprenticeship, indentured to him, and he would come round and supervise me on jobs. So I did lots of things by myself, and from there I sort of fell in love with the built environment. That was where I wanted to be right from there. Things weren't really great as well, so I fumbled my way through my apprenticeship and then did what most kids did in those days and saved up enough money for an air ticket, one-way ticket out of here, and took off travelling.
Amazing. What did you take on any other aspects of carpentry when you were doing that as a profession?
Yeah, I did lots of different things. Did house framing, lock-up carpenters, all that sort of stuff. But I also had a parallel hobby which has taken me on lots of different journeys as well, and that was theatre set building and design over the years. So yeah, I did lots of that. Ended up at Channel 7 at one stage. Actually accidentally got to see the first episode of Neighbours.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, which looking back on it now, I never thought that show would have lasted that long, but it was that was a wonderful journey that was totally unexpected.
So from carpentry, how did you find yourself in design?
Well, that's a long story. Having an interest in the built environment here, when I travelled, I spent a lot of time in Asia, months on end, and I found myself looking at all the vernacular architecture from simple huts that villages do to grand colonial buildings and I was noticing how they were performing. You see a lot of bamboo huts that are up on stilts to capture any sea breezes naturally. And when you get into colonial buildings, they're big high buildings. They have lots of cross flow ventilation through them, big fans, and they were designed for that particular environment in mind. The real big moment, the big light bulb moment for me was that I was travelling in the northern Indian Himalayas in a place called Ladakh, and to paint a picture of that area, it was a high plateau, probably about 10,000 feet minimum above sea level. So not much grows up there. It's like an absolute moonscape. The monsoon clouds are so heavy that they can't get up there, so it doesn't rain much. Rains a little bit, but they rely on the glacial floor for their water supply. And it might be a day of 35 degrees, and all of a sudden this pitsy little cloud will come over, and the temperature will drop to 5 or 10 degrees. So it's extreme conditions. They're housebound for 3 months of the year because it is just so cold. So all the animals and everything come inside. So they're all basically stone buildings with what timber they have for the roof, and then they put mud on there and seal it all up. Nice. A French architect had been there 5 years before I was there, and this is third world conditions, really harsh, and he took photos of all the vernacular architecture there, and he did a few simple things and changed people's lives immensely. He developed trom walls, which was a simple low cost alternative for their heating and cooling.
I might just get you to explain trom wall for those who aren't familiar with it.
A trom wall is it's got a glass exterior, and then at the back of it a lot of thermal mass, and they usually paint them black. And at the bottom of the window and the interior of the wall, they have two vents, and they have the same at the top. So in wintertime, when the sun hits this, they're all facing south because they're in the northern hemisphere. Yeah, the heat, the air between the glass and the wall heats up, so they open up the outside of the bottom and the inside at the top, and the air that's drawn in heats up and then travels into the interior of the house. In summertime, when it's really, really hot, they do the opposite. So the interior of the buildings open up, the vent, and the exterior at the top. So hot air rises, sucks all the warm air out, and stiff lace with cooler hair.
Yeah, what a great idea, just utilising thermal mass and solar gain. Simple and effective. Yeah.
So I spent a few weeks there. They had solar cookers and all sorts of weird and wonderful things, and that really got my imagination going, why do we still build all these triple fronted brick veneer homes here when we have, in this country, we have, vast amounts of sunlight, and we have wind, and we have all these things. Why can't we harness those? So that started my journey into design.
What an inspirational start. If everyone had an origin story like that, I think we'd be further advanced.
So that's pretty much drove the passion for the energy efficiency and how a house can perform, sort of look after itself, really.
Yes.
With at minimal cost to the occupant, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's cost neutral. It doesn't cost any extra to design a house on those principles.
Yeah.
And that was the inspiration for my first home. There was a few people around at that stage that were interested in this sort of stuff. There were no main companies that were specialising in that. I was just a carpenter, just doing my own thing, and I was fortunate enough that my brother-in-law Pete, he had a great interest in it as well. So we got together and designed our first home at Cape Patterson. That was 30 years ago, and that house, still in existence, on its fourth owner. They're refusing to sell it because they love it so much, and they don't understand the main principles, but they know, that when they come home, that the house is really, really warm in winter and it's cool in summer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was your first home, when was that built?
That was built in 1995.
Okay. So I know in talking with Jess that you might have been one of the first to sort of look at what is now known as the NatHERS, which is a star rating system that we use to essentially determine, the energy consumption of a home. Was that house modelled at all?
It was pretty rudimentary what they did. The state government had a small department that was specialising in this. They really wanted to go in this direction, so they tried to educate the community. So I basically went down there with a little model of my house, and they plonked it on a table with a sun tracking machine.
A physical model that you built.
A physical model, that I built, and they put it on this little tracking system, and had the winter sun that dialed around it, and the summer sun, and they're going, there's no sun getting in here at this time of the year. There was no computer programs that they did, and they did a manual assessment on it, and it came up as a perfect score, and everyone was amazed. With all that, including me.
Congrats! Like, that's a huge achievement. So yeah.
And there was one point that they deducted from you for, was it a door or something?
Yes, they said I didn't have a door at the top of the stairwell. It was a 2-story house, but I did have a door at the top of the stairwell. So they missed that bit. But
so 10-star home in the 90s, maybe one of the very origins of what is now our software package of NatHERS that we use in every
and it's hard to explain to someone about how an energy efficient house works. You for the people who aren't educated in this realm, to say we can design a house for you that's going to heat itself in winter and cool itself in summer naturally. Not all the time, but most of the time. So, I built it for my family first and foremost, but I used to get a real kick out of people coming into my house in winter time and asking if I can turn the heater down. Yeah.
I actually get that at my home. I did a retrofit on an old government home, and that's where we live now and reside with my family. And the same thing, people come in and are unhappy because it's so warm in the winter.
Yes.
It's just
it's an interesting problem to have. Yeah.
I mean, I also know in chatting with Jess that this actually got a bit of publicity when you achieved this result of 10 stars, we'll call it.
Yes.
So how did that feel to have
acknowledgement? It was great. It was the acknowledgement that I got. It was through a discussion when I was actually down there having my house assessed, they had a reporter from The Age was just sitting around. They said, "Come and have a look at this guy's house," and I explained to them all the principles and features of the house, and they were amazed. So they wrote an article on it, and the side story for the article was that this was 30 years ago, that if you can design an energy efficient house, and mine was at that stage, that the banks were contemplating lowering the interest rates on that house, because they knew that you're not spending large amounts of sum just to heat and cool the place through electricity. And if you could do it naturally, well, it was a better bet for them. Yeah. And here we are 30 years later, and I think we've got one or two banks that are doing it at the moment. So
it only took 30 years to actually action it, but there you go.
Yeah.
And I will just give a shameless plug to Bank Australia as one of those. So they certainly offer green home loans, as we'll call it, where you'll get a reduced interest rate if you can provide an energy rating, I think of 7 stars or more, 7.5 stars. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Cape's probably, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that was 30 years ago, and now, as you're saying, with banks, and I think banks are going to place more and more importance on that, because people aren't earning as much, and if they know that you're not spending that much on electricity, and as I said before, I have no bills, and sometimes minus bills, which is a great thing to do. So it should and will become more and more prevalent as we move forward. I think a lot of the banks, and I won't mention any of them at this stage, they do offer green loans. So if there's anyone out there that are looking to put solar on, and batteries and heat pumps, they have special really low interest rates for those.
Yeah, that's great. A quick Google search will no doubt bring up who those are.
Yes, absolutely.
And further to what you were talking about before, at those peak periods of the seasons where it might be that couple of days where it is a bit hot or a bit cooler, you've got the photovoltaics, the solar system with a battery to then offset the usage of an air source heat pump, like a split air or reverse cycle air conditioning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unit, right? So in conjunction, it just works so well. Yeah,
so we have the luxury of living by the coast, so a lot of our prevailing winds come from the southwest and southeast. We just crack a window and house will cool itself down naturally.
Yeah, we very rarely does ours get a run at home, to be honest. 4 kids, 2 adults in the house, maybe half a dozen times a year the split system goes on. Just maybe half an hour to an hour just to knock the top off the temperature in summer, or bring it up a little bit in winter. Could throw a jumper on, Tad. Yeah. He has been known to just throw that one around at the family. Just go put another jumper on. Yeah. But it's not really needed. That's that experience that you get, that it's really hard to explain to someone without them experiencing that themselves.
Yeah, which is really impressive. I mean, I think I've been caught in about 6 rain events in the day and a half I've been here already. Yep. So, it's just to paint a picture. It's not just all sunshine and cool breeze, cool sea breezes coming through at this location. There is weather patterns and elements that, do require this level of attention. So
South Gippsland.
Yeah.
You've said that a few times, actually.
I'll just add to that by saying that when I was growing up, you really noticed summers. Yep. And winters were bitterly cold. And living in an energy efficient house, you don't experience all those hot summers unless you're out there and into it. Like in this country, I wouldn't mind $1 for every time I've heard someone say, bloody Victoria is so cold, I'm going to Queensland. We do that. Now, my answer to that is, where do people in Sweden go to? They go home because their houses are so efficient.
Yeah, it's I think, is it Sweden or Switzerland? It's I remember doing my research for blower door testing, and I'm looking at all of the standards around the world and what air changes that they set for all of these, and it was, I think, Sweden possibly or Switzerland, but they basically don't have one in their code because that's just what the market expects.
Yes, absolutely.
And that was quite interesting to me because a lot do. That is the truth. A lot of countries do have this set into their construction codes, but they didn't, just because that's what the market demanded, and therefore all homes are built that way. Yeah.
My wife, I'll just digress a little bit. My wife's best friend, Joanne, she married a Swedish guy and lived in Sweden for 20 years. And we had the privilege of going over and spending time in her house. And the house was over 100 years old.
Wow. Okay.
And it was made of solid Oregon planks, like a log cabin. It had Baltic pine lining on the inside and Baltic pine weatherboards on the outside. It had hemp in between the logs.
Yep.
Yeah, like they do with traditional ships.
Yes.
And they had the casement windows. They had an internal casement and an outside casement window, so it was like a double glazed window.
Yeah.
Double doors on the inside and the outside, and that house performed beautifully. Absolutely beautifully.
So I love that because there doesn't sound like there's any modern exterior sarkings or weather resistive barriers or anything like that. There's obviously been no moisture issues because it's standing proud for 100 years.
Yes.
And it's thermally comfortable.
Yes, absolutely. And we just haven't cottoned onto that yet as of today. You know, we're still lagging behind the rest of the world with our energy efficient standards.
Yeah, very commonly said too.
Yeah.
I know that you're also one of the first residents of the Cape. So I'm going to circle back now to the Cape and I want to hear your experiences of that and what it's like to live here and just general discussions around, why the Cape and how you ended up here.
I guess for me, I grew up in a small town not far from here, a little place called Bena. There was 90 residents there, lots of kids.
Yeah.
And the only rule in that town was my dad had this prolific whistle. If you're ever standing next to him, your ears would ring for a week. And at 5 o'clock every night, he would walk out the back and whistle, and the whole town knew that it was dinner time. And the rule around there was that the last kid that got home got a belting. So what you would do was you would run into the neighbour's house or anybody's house. So from there, I had a real sense of community growing up as a small boy, and had lots of mates to play with. It was just a wonderful experience growing up there, and I always wanted to try and recapture that. And when I heard about the Cape project and what they were trying to achieve, I said, I've got to live here. Yeah, because that is, and it is exactly the same. It's almost an open door policy. Jess has got kids. I always see them out running around, riding bikes, and they've got their mates with them and all that sort of stuff. So you're never alone. You've got a real sense of community here, and all your neighbours, because they've got a series of walking tracks. I think it's 5 or 6 Ks of walking tracks. That's the main thoroughfare around here. So, if you're feeling a bit down sometimes, you just go for a walk and there's always someone to engage with. And I think that's a really powerful thing. Mm-hmm. The other thing that drew me to the project was the fact that it wasn't a cookie cutter development.
Yeah.
They looked at the topography of the land extensively and worked out where all the water should flow through, because we have large swales here and reed bed systems and things like that to purify the water, so that when we do have a rain event, the water stays on site, and it nourishes all the vegetation that we've put in here. And I think that's really important. And an offshoot of that is that we have an amazing abundance of wildlife here. It's not uncommon to have a kangaroo hop past you or to see a echidna on your way. And I think that's really important in this modern day and age, when we build all these houses that are rammed up against each other, and all the offshoots to our mental health that occur because of that.
Yeah, I mean, off mic we spoke about biophilic design as well, and that's something that obviously means a lot to you too, Tad.
It is. It is. I feel that we compensate for the lack of biophilia in our houses by producing these great big houses, and instead of looking outwards to our neighbours, we look inwards.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that's evident here. I'm standing here as we speak, and I've got this sight line to vegetation on all sides, and beyond that I can see the neighbours.
Yes.
You know, if we were to walk outside right now, we'd probably be able to interact with them, but it doesn't feel like there's a lack of privacy by any means.
No.
And I think there was even some further things that chatting with Jess, talking about the biodiversity of the site. But there's certain species that are almost going to be or are intended to be reintroduced into this space? With some frogs or some?
Oh yeah. We do have like this was a grazing land.
Yep.
Initially, and it produced grass. That was it. And the guy that owned it, he would put cattle on it to fatten them up, to sell them, to pay for the rates in the super, so that he could put cattle back on to fatten them up. It was an endless cycle. So. I may have mentioned before off camera, you know, that this guy was really inspired by the developer Brendan Condon's idea, and eventually Brendan was able to purchase the land. And his background was land restoration programs on a huge scale. You know, he'd been doing housing developments in Melbourne and doing all the landscaping, and realised that our built environment needs a bit of a shake up.
Yeah.
So no one was doing it, so he decided to do it.
Speaking of that, do you want to take us back to, obviously you're a resident of Cape Patterson.
Yes.
Just explain a little bit, like there's a backstory there. Give us a bit of a rundown of, you know, when you heard about this development, you know, the development to the west and all that sort of stuff, how it felt to be a resident of Cape Patterson, basically being against it, going to the community event where Brendan stands up there to explain, you know, what the plan is and all that sort of stuff. Do you want to just run us through that? There's a good story there. I think a lot of people would like to hear that one.
Right. There'd been a 125 house development that had just got approved, and that was in Remunered Heathland along the west flank of the township at that stage, and everyone was devastated. We fought really, really hard to try and save this piece of Remunered Heathland. It was really near and dear to the community. There were walking tracks through it. You know, I could walk from my house, for example, all the way to the beach on through Heathland.
Oh, great.
It was just it was a great thing, and that had gone down. So everyone was really upset, really despondent. And then immediately after that got approved, we heard that the land to the west, which is 44 hectares, a developer had got hold of it and was planning to build. I heard at that stage. And sorry for the people in Narre Warren, but I call them Narre Warren houses. 750 Narre Warren houses. And with my interest in energy efficiency, I'm going, it was devastating. Everyone was really down. That stage, Brendan heard about the Chinese whispers that were going on around the town and said, look, I really have to dispel all these rumours. They're not doing my cause any good. So to his credit, he organised a meeting at the Cape Community Hall with all his team, and basically he put himself in the scope to tell everyone. And I went down there with my meanest, angriest face, you know, lips pursed, you know, arms folded, and I sat in front of him, you know, ready to, you know, and tried to stare him out. I was so upset. And then he started talking about his vision of the Cape. And I was absolutely blown away. You know, 8-star energy efficient housing at that stage, you know, mass land restoration programs, introducing species that hadn't been around here for a long time, you know, and you know, all harnessed using solar power. And you know, I got his phone number and, you know, relaxed immediately. The eye stare, you know, dropped, and the shoulders dropped, and the arms dropped, and the next day I rang him up and said, look, you know, that was really, really great. And for the next hour, we didn't talk about this project in general, but we talked about housing in general and all the issues that are associated with poor housing that we have so much of in this country. You know, we talk about child obesity rates, you know, child suicide rates, you know, and all those sort of things, you know, bill shock because the houses are such energy pigs, you know, that people, you know, they're forced into these estates. They've got no choice. And he wanted to show an alternative. And from that day on, I stood in lockstep with him to try and get this project ahead. And it's like every time in someone's life, we all have open door times when a door opens up and then we travel on a path. When we're young, that happens a lot, and then it slows down as we get older. And, I was in my early 40s at that stage, and I just thought this project has to come to fruition. It is so important, both state-wise and nationally. And from 2004 to 2012, we in this community, it was an environmental program that we used to try and get this through. And eventually, we garnished up enough support to get it through the Shire and then through to the state government.
7 to 8 years of just commitment from everyone involved.
Yeah, and it'd been running 3 or 4 years before I joined it. They tried to keep it really quiet, so it was a long time. And Brendan has a background in environmental activism, and he said to me, I don't know much about planning, but I know how to run an environmental program, and that's what we ended up doing, and we got it through.
Yeah, this wasn't a development, this was a vision. This is something altogether different to what I think most people have looked at what this is in recent times.
Yes.
So were you one of the first residents then?
Yes. Yeah, I had a little house that was like a farmhouse. It sat out in the middle of a paddock. No one here, because the take-up initially, people they weren't sceptical, but they weren't knowing of what the project was about. Well, what do I want to live there? It's not what I'm used to. So I think there were probably about 10 or 12 houses that were here, and we had a really small connected group of people, and I had people knocking on my door going, "What's this joint all about?" Well, come in and if you've got a spare hour, I'll tell you about it. Yeah, and but it sort of sat there for a while, and then we got a few more houses, and then again it was another light bulb moment where people realised, hey, this is something really, really special. And the place just exploded.
Yeah, it was definitely a slow burn to start off with, and it's the best way to explain it. It exploded.
Yes.
Stage 1 and stage 2 were going gangbusters.
Yeah.
So so officially what you're talking about maybe wasn't actually the first stage of the development where people were residing here, or it was part of that?
Yeah, there's 5 stages all up. So the first stage, I think it was about 25 houses. So they did it nice and slowly to bring it onto the market, because they wanted to present a small area to explain to people, because it's a lot easier to physically show someone through an energy efficient house than to trying to explain it to them. They just don't get it.
I feel like the most important thing is feel.
Yes.
When you walk into this home right now, and I can feel the winter, or sort of at a transitional month now, but I've got the sun beaming on the back of my legs, and I can feel the warmth, and I can feel the calmness in this space because it's been considered for that. And sorry, to digress, but it's just that feeling or emotional of being in a home like this is the most critical element, I feel, to selling it, so to speak. Yeah.
And that's where the sustainable house days that were happening here, they were huge. We'd have hundreds of people. Tad would open up his house kindly with some of the display homes. We'd have hundreds of people come through his house from 9 o'clock till pretty much 4 o'clock. By the end of the day, we were cooked.
No voice left.
It was unbelievable.
I liken it to having a party in your own home and you're not invited.
Yeah.
It was just crazy, but it was great to scan the room and hear. We used to just walk around the room, and if anybody wanted to ask any questions, we were there for them. But both Jess and I used to sit back and read the room and hear the comments from people, and they were many and varied. Some not so complimentary, and we jumped onto those guys first and explained to them why we did things, and they walked away and went, yeah, that makes sense, because they're coming from a very low knowledge base with houses. And then we have converts. I'll just digress again. We had a 17-year-old girl who she came in a few times during the day and said, oh, you guys are busy, I'll catch you at the end of the day. And this young girl with her dad, who was a builder, she wanted to ask me everything about energy efficient housing. And she said, I'm doing year 12. I want to be a building designer. How do I do that? And I want to specialise in energy efficient housing. Now, that 17-year-old girl now is probably 24, and she works at Adapt Design Group.
Still, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it was a random phone call after that meeting. She rang up. Tessa rings the office out of the blue. She'd I think she started studying science or nursing or something. She ended up going down a different pathway, and she's like, "No, this is not for me."
Yeah.
And then enrolled herself in the building design course. And then the phone rings. She's like, "Oh, hi, it's Tessa. You might not remember me, but we spoke at Sustainable House Day." I'm like, "Oh no, I remember. Yeah, I clearly remember." I said, "It's not every day, you have an interaction with someone like that at that age who is dead set on this is what I'm going to do, and I'm doing it with you guys." And sure enough, the phone rang and she was in the office the next day.
Yep. Yeah. She didn't ask for a job. She told Jess that she was coming to work for us. Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah. I mean, that is such testament to the youth of today in a positive light, because I feel like there is a little bit of a negativity applied to what the next generations are doing. And as we get older, I feel we're pretty guilty of doing that, of casting that dispersion. But when you hear stories like that, it's pretty evident that there's still some fantastic young people coming up who are passionate and we can pass the flame on to.
Yes.
I probably have already shared this story, but I had a similar experience recently where we were at a sustainability festival and I set up a blower door to do a demonstration, and a fourth-year carpentry apprentice who had spoken to us earlier, just like from across the way, pointed, and I heard him say, "What is that?" And he ran, got in while I closed the door, and went and sat in front of the blower door, the whole thing, mouth open, and took it away. And that'll probably be his direction that he'll go on, and that's what we're looking for.
Yes, and we need to build our workforce that is sympathetic to counteracting all the effects that are going to be thrust upon us in a not too distant future. These young people that are choosing these career paths are really inspirational. A lot of us can just sit back going, "Oh, poor me, what can I do?" Well, as an individual, we can do a lot. Like, the most powerful statement that we can say to anybody is, we live in either carbon positive or carbon neutral. We don't have any fossil fuel bills when fossil fuels are the root of all our issues that we have today. And I think that's the most important thing that we can pass on. And it's great that we have young people that are, again, taking up the mantle and running with it.
Yeah. I don't think that operational carbon is that difficult to achieve in Australia.
No.
It's probably more the embodied carbon that we still have a little ways to work on.
Yes, absolutely.
How have you addressed that, both of you, actually, when I talk about that? I know we've just, in more recent months decided to start doing life cycle analysis using rapid LCA, and we're starting to try and consider these things more. But how is that usually considered from you both?
Well, with our knowledge base that we have at the moment, and both Jess and I are always talking about new innovations. It's a real team, and to walk into the office and sometimes we walk into the office and there's no one working, but we're always talking about things, going, "Hey, I just found out about this new innovation," and we share it. And that should be the standard across the board. So look, we go for carbon neutrality with everything. We also look at the life cycle of the materials, many of the claddings that we use, to see whether it can be recycled. So when it's at the end of its use by date, that we can pull that house down completely, and 95% of the materials within that dwelling can be recycled into other things. Yeah. But there's always improvements, and we are open to any new trends that come along. And I note that with technology nowadays, particularly with battery technology, we wouldn't have been talking about batteries 10 years ago. No. And solar, and then they're talking, vehicle to grid with EVs. That's going to be huge.
That's a game changer, in my opinion. Yes. Whenever everyone queries me on battery tech and is my time ready now, and where's the payback, and all of those sort of questions you typically get with batteries, it's vehicle to to the grid that I'm so invested in. I think that's where it changes. And
Yes.
so you can go take your car to work. Hopefully they've got a huge solar array. You're charging your car, you come in, you power the house, and then once that's full, it's going back into the grid. Like, it's just, fantastic. And yeah. Is this what you're looking to try and achieve yourself, Tad?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Like, I look at, I'm a bit of a rev head when it comes to EVs. I missed that when I was younger. I had an old HR Holden station wagon, and that was probably the closest thing I ever got to being a rev head. It was just, just clunking it from second to third and cruising down the road. But with EVs, it's a real game changer. There's lots of misconceptions about EVs and what they can do, but I'm lucky enough that I have a sister who goes overseas a lot, and she has a Tesla. So I begrudgingly look after it for her. And just my experience with that over the last few months, like I had it for 3 months, and I plugged it into the house, and wham, no energy bills. I wasn't pouring petrol down its throat all the time. It was just coming straight off the roof of our house, and that was amazing to know that we can do that. You've got a really closed system when it comes to producing your own electricity.
Yeah, I might actually get you to dive a little deeper into the explanation of that for listeners as well. So I suppose, how this works. How does it work for those who have interest in maybe trying to achieve the same thing?
You're talking about vehicle to grid?
Yep.
Yeah. Vehicle to grid is you basically use your car battery as an energy source for your house. So you can either draw energy off the roof to charge that vehicle, or if you don't have a home battery, you can use your car to generate electricity for the house. So an average house battery is probably 8 to 10 kilowatts. So if you've got 77 kilowatts, if you have a really severe blackout for a week, and your car is full, you can run your house, no worries, off your car for a week. And the beauty of vehicle to grid is that your car's not necessarily a car. It's a mobile energy source, so you can drive it around anywhere. So let's just say you have vehicle to grid at work. So you plug when you get to work, you plug your car in. You're not drawing any energy out of the system. But if the grid needs extra power in the middle of the day, if it's summer and all the air conditioners are going, the power company can actually draw that power out of your car. It might take 5 to 10 kilowatts of power out, and they actually, peak times, they actually pay you for that, so that you can charge your car up at home for nothing, and when the power company needs it, they can draw it out of your car, and some of the reports that I've read that you can actually make somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 by selling your electricity back to the grid in peak time. So I reckon it's pretty amazing.
That is.
Yeah.
Have there been any discussions around community power packs or community battery systems in the Cape, or is it almost at the point where everyone is going to have a battery here and it's going to act like that anyway?
Yeah, I think a community battery is a great thing, but if you've got a battery at home, you've got full control over it. So we've got a meter there, so that can gauge, how much electricity is going back to the grid and how much you're using. So it's more in your hands with that. I think, either system's fantastic, but I think that having a metered battery of your own is a lot more beneficial.
There you go.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about, continuing that discussion around next generations coming up, and would you have any words of wisdom for those listening as well? Like any top 3 tips or any words of wisdom you'd like to pass on to listeners?
Oh, look, I think kids of today are absolutely bombarded with media, and there's all these research coming out about kids that are plonked in front of screens all the time. And the effects that has on people. I was really, really lucky that when I grew up, we didn't have any of that technology. I'm sounding pretty old here, but, if you wanted to go and hang out with your mates, you went to the pub, and we all listened to bands and if you weren't in a band back then, you didn't exist.
Just so listeners know, Jess is in a band.
have been for a long time.
Yeah. So there's all those things on kids these days. My stronger advice, and I did it when I was young, is to just have a look over the fence and see what's happening, in other parts of the world. I think that is really important, and you get, Australia's a great place, but I think that to really appreciate it, you really have to leave it. And that's probably my strongest words of advice. And also, we're in a real crossroads with where we are on this planet, and sometimes it gets you down. Yeah. But when you see projects like this and the innovations that we are making, there is a glimmer of hope that we can actually sort this mess out from my generation and generations before. So go out and have a look at the world, see what's going on, and just enjoy where you are at this time, because we will sort this out. And if counteracting the effects of climate change is to live in a house that heats and cools itself and has no running costs, that's a pretty hard thing to cop, I reckon.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things that I probably still want to just chat about as well. And circling back again to now, when you described you were both in a room at one of the original Stage 1 open house days for Sustainability Day. Your connection together, like how did you both come to be, and then what was ADAPT's involvement in the Cape from there?
So I was working for another building design firm in Wonthaggi. I was 22, something like that. Ad went out we needed another staff member, and we were doing interviews, and in walks Tad. I think I was sitting there probably with a pair of thongs on at the time, feet up on the desk, too cool for school. Anyway, Tad comes in, great. He joins the company. And then, from there, so sort of 20 years later, is where we are now. But I left that company, went away and did something a little bit different in the city for a bit. Tad left the company and did something a little bit different as well for a little bit. Just got to a point in life where we were looking to come back home. Basically, I was coming home with no job prospects, no anything. Me and Tad had stayed in touch, obviously, throughout all of that. End up talking to Tad, and he's like, well, I don't have a job either, and you don't have a job, so why don't we have a crack ourselves? Yeah. Off the back of that, sort of ADAPT was born. The first design work or anything that we actually did as ADAPT Design Group was a couple of pre-designed houses for this estate. They never got built. I don't think they got used. They're not on any website. They're not anywhere for anyone to see. Initially when the Cape was in its infancy, there was a team of architects and designers. I'll let Tad sort of stretch that story out a little bit more. That were doing some work, and we thought, it's okay. They're all doing a pretty good job. And Tad, being quite close to Brendan, had some opinions on sort of what was happening, and I think Brendan basically said, well, why don't you do better then? And Tad said, all right, I will. Yeah. And that was our first two designs as ADAPT Design Group, was two pre-designed houses for the Cape, single-story house that could be adapted into a two-story house as a family grows. So a house that would grow as a family grows or as required. That's how ADAPT started. And then it was sort of a few years later that the company actually formed, and we got stuck into it. Yeah,
we come off a real high there, because Brendan was a bit sceptical that a couple of lads with no real experience in energy efficient design could sit down there with some of the best architects in the state and actually draw their eye to our plans and go, hey guys, these aren't too bad. You've done really well. So as Jess said, we were both, without really knowing it, we were both heading down this path, and we just formalised it. And right from the get-go, we decided that our company, Adapt Design Group, would specialise in energy efficient houses. But having said that, for the first 12 months of our existence, we were doing energy efficient decks
and carports
and carports and pergolas.
But we all were.
Yeah, but we just needed a few houses to get out there for people to start talking, and also we knew that the Cape project, we were certain that it was going to go ahead and make a reality. So that's what we were aiming at, to centre ourselves and use the Cape as our springboard into energy efficiency. And I know now, like, I'm not in the office as much as what I used to be, but 95% of what we do now is energy efficient housing. If someone comes in and asks us to design a Hamptons house, for example, or a triple fronted brick veneer home, we politely say that that's not our forte, and move on.
Yeah, we're just extremely lucky to have this on our back doorstep. It gives us a platform to do what we'd set out to do from day dot. It's not every day something like this happens. It's not every day that it happens on your back doorstep, and then you get to live in it.
Yeah.
Because we both live in the estate. Tad's on his second house, and we get to drive around on our way home from work or to work and see our projects start from an excavator on site to the keys getting handed over. It's unbelievable. We're extremely lucky to have this.
When was the last time you both just stood back and looked backwards and had a look at where it started from then to now?
It's actually, when we do this, like, this is a good time to reflect, where you actually have time to think instead of being tied up in everyday life. But it's usually things like this, or if I bump into Tad on the walking track, which often happens. And we end up yakking for about an hour and a half. Yeah,
our wives desert us for some reason. I don't know why, but they just keep walking.
Yeah, the kids take off where they're gone. They're the times, where you get a minute of peace and quiet. You can actually have a look around and appreciate, having this as part of the main projects that we do are in this estate.
Yeah. And what I get a real thrill about, if you see someone in Melbourne now and you go, where do you live? And I said, I live at Cape Patterson. Oh, is that where the Cape is? And if you mentioned that 10 years ago, that would not be on their radar. But this project is recognised, as I said, statewide and nationally. My brother, I don't know whether I've influenced him or not. I say I will, and he has bought a block at Narara Eco Village, which is a sort of a sister project to this. And I went up there to do his design for his house. So I went up and did a site inspection, and sort of scope the land and I got a really great thrill when I was up there last time that, my brother said, oh, this is my brother Tad. He comes from the Cape, and he goes, oh, are you the building designer down there? I said, well, yeah, I'm part of Adapt Design Group. We've heard of you guys. Yeah. And that gives you a great thrill when you know that the product that you're putting down here is recognised elsewhere, and people are looking at this project for inspiration.
Oh, but I know for a fact that the Cape is something that most people in our niche are aware of or know of, and not just nationally but internationally.
Yes.
And I just, even the publications, the awards, everything that you personally, I've seen personally from you both, from Adapt and the teams at Adapt, and it's incredible. How much involvement do you think you've had in the individual projects in the entire development?
Well, it's always hands-on. Yourself as a building designer, you sort of take ownership of the designs that you're doing, and it's great to be able to take someone by the hand and lead them through the process. And and then we've got a great suite of builders that we work in with, and it, as Jess said before, it's fantastic to take someone on that journey and then be there when you hand over the keys to that, and then watch their journey flourish from there. Just little things that sometimes when you design a house, the house has been finished and you walk through it, and there's something that you unintentionally did within that. It might be a view out of a window or something like that, and you go to yourself, wow, that I didn't know that was there. And then having owners come by and go, oh, wow, look at that view out that window, going, yeah, we thought you'd like that. All that sort of stuff. So,
Tony from TS Construction said something that really I hadn't considered, but he's literally built the homes of his neighbours.
Yes.
And you are living next door to it's just so community minded. Like whether it's in, I guess it's not really intentional, but it's ended up being that way. And I thought that was fantastic because, as I said to him, I thought, that's a nightmare for a builder, but everyone's happy, smiles, and there's just, it's fantastic.
Well, I've personally been I live in a court, and basically we're like the nursery. All the kids in the estate basically live around the same area, and I've been lucky enough to have designed all of those families' houses.
Every single one around yours, yeah.
But at a bonus, I get to go around there and enjoy them myself. We're having barbecues, we're meeting up. On a Sunday, we're knocking around in the court, riding bikes, whatever it is. So that community aspect for the kids and all that sort of stuff. But being able to enjoy a house that you've had a part in sort of making come to life, again, that's not normal.
It's definitely not.
But it's so cool that we get to do that.
And that probably segues nicely to where I sort of wanted to take this next part of the discussion, because what from here happens? We've had a great little bit of a view at what it sort of led up to this point, but where does it go from here, Tad? Like, what does the Cape look like from here, or is it now? Its role is now to influence further development. So how does this
look? I think its role initially was to influence the building industry and to influence our life in general. To show that show developers that they can develop estates like this and make a profit.
Yeah.
And that's critical, because you don't want to throw your money away, but to do that, a multitude of things. Energy efficient housing we've spoken about, the natural environment, recreating the natural environment, building estates where they don't just start on one boundary and clear fell everything and then just put houses and roads in there.
And then name all the streets after the trees they cut down?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So all that. So, as we said before, we have an array of wildlife here. Like I have tinnitus in my ears, but I live near a dam that was here on site, and they've cleaned it out and made it an amazing wetland. Now there's 7 different species of frogs in there now, and they hum and chirp away. And and then all of a sudden the tinnitus, it's the right frequency, so it all goes away. And to watch the bird life start to come back over, and we've got some avid bird watchers that do bird counts here, and I think we're up to about 135 species of birds. Goodness. Different birds, and we've had one that I'm really excited about is the Japanese snipe that come down. They were a gaming bird early on, and they were almost shot to extinction. And we developed a small wetland on one part of the estate. And the bird watchers saw the snipe come down. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what a Japanese snipe is, they're a bird that flies from Siberia down to Australia, and they take 5 or 6 days. A really only scrawny little bird, and it's absolutely exhausted. So it sits there and it pulls up the deck chair and recuperates for a few months, has some kids, and then when they can fly, and then they fly back to Siberia now winter. So incredible little bird. I think we have 8 or 10 now. So they're just starting to grow, and that's in our estate.
This is their breeding grounds here.
Yes,
in the actual Cape.
Yeah,
oh my goodness,
and we have there's a really small minute koala population here, 3 or 4, and we're starting to build habitat for them as well.
Yep.
There's a group that does that, so we're hoping that we can it's the Strzelecki koala. It's been DNA tested to say that it is a local thing, an extremely endangered.
I didn't realise there was an endemic koala here.
Yeah. So all those sort of things, and we have a great snake population. I know that mightn't suit everyone, but people are really aware. They have a place within this environment. We get frogs, we get snakes, so that's just a natural thing. So just give them a wide berth.
That's incredible how much this has contributed. Yeah. I mean, we've touched on it a few times and just how much it's not just about energy efficient housing, it's about community and it's about the environment. So both the natural and built environment seem to harmoniously work here.
Yes.
It's symbiotic in some ways. It's exceptionally I'm looking forward to going for another walk after this episode and recording now and just taking it in. The drive back to Bendigo is not going to be so so easy today. Yeah. Jess, is there anything else that you felt that we'd like to chat about, or yourself, Tad? Have you got any notes?
Look, I just think we're on the precipice of something really, really great. You know, there are developers out there that are looking at this type of estate to wheel out, and as we move forward, I think that at long last, that energy efficient housing is coming to the forefront. If people don't understand it, they know about what it's all about. And as I said, 30 years ago, nobody knew, and people were, well, they didn't really care. You know, I go back to a conversation that we had in the office with Tess. She bought her first house in Traralgon, and she knows she's right across energy efficiency. Like she'll be running a DAP design group at some stage in the future. It'll be hers, I'm sure.
She'll give me the sack.
Yeah. But she said that she was having a conversation with friends of hers, and she was saying how cold the house was. It's supposed to be 6-star standard, and we know that you know there are some shortcuts that developers make to increase their profit margin. When she was grizzling basically about how cold this bloody house was that she just moved into, and her friend turned around and said, "Welcome to adulthood," you know. And Tessa being Tessa, she's not going to sit on her laurels. She's going to change that.
Yeah. It's just interesting, the effect. It's the spillover effect of this that I find impressive too. So, you know, obviously we've been trying to do this for the last 10 years, as you guys have at Outlier. But then to see this then filter out to surrounding suburbs, all the builders are now aware of this type of, you know, the hybrid home, as you like to call it, passive solar design, doing all those little 1%ers that make all the difference. It's all the builders that we do work with now, and they're not building in the Cape, they're mostly outside of the Cape. They're all doing all of the same things now on all of their projects.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the effect that this has had on the wider community, the building industry, the designers, it's really impressive. And look, if you don't know something about the energy efficient design or sustainability or whatever it might be, just don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Because if you don't ask the questions, you're not going to get the answers. And yeah, something very simple as like networking with someone who knows something that you don't know is an incredible tool. It's free, and you never know what will become of that one conversation. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions, and yeah, just increase your knowledge base as much as you can.
Oh, that's where true growth is. Gosh, I can only, just in our meeting and you know, the discussions that we've had, Jess, the growth that I've personally had is just extraordinary. Yeah.
I think that, like with you guys, I think it's really fantastic. You both got your own companies, and you cross-pollinate each other's companies. So both your knowledge bases, just by the sheer fact that you've reached out to each other, has doubled. Now, you know, I urge all the building designers and architects to cross-pollinate each other, because we're at a critical time, and this knowledge is for everybody, and any little edge that you can help your competitor or one of your colleagues, it goes a long way, and history has shown that companies that work with each other, not only is your company stronger, but your competitor's company is stronger as well, and you can both lift yourself, and that is a really powerful tool.
That's a great analogy of that. I think that's probably one of the things that people can't get beyond, is that barrier to realise that by assisting each other, you will both elevate. Yes. So therefore, you'll both benefit, rather than that closed door approach that I've personally experienced a few times. So,
Yes. We've all experienced that, and that seems to be the default position, and it's not nice. I'll really digress with it. My father was a butcher in Carramburra, and there were 4 butcher shops in Carramburra, and one day his neighbour, his competitor, come down and said, "Hey Huey, I'm running out of a hind quarter. You haven't got a spare one in your fridge, have you?" He goes, "Yeah, help yourself." And as a 12-year-old boy looking at the butcher next door stealing my father's meat, I said, "What did you do that for, Dad?" He said, "Tad, I now have 2 cool rooms in my business."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes a long, long way.
I've really enjoyed this conversation, Tad and Jess. It's it's kind of almost a very emotional discussion for me at times. So I appreciate the honesty and the thoughtful insight into this discussion. There is usually a question that we ask all guests, and that is, if you had a wish, is there anything that you would change in industry, or maybe again just some final words of wisdom?
Look, I think that in the general housing industry, they tend to build houses for families. We've got 1.9 kids on average for the house, and I think that we really need strong regulations to have diverse communities. Like I go past these cookie cutter developments and they're all the same. You never see anyone around there, but the reality is that we don't have that in society. We have a really severe housing crisis where people just can't get houses. Like our the area where we have the greatest homeless rate is women between the ages of 50 and onwards, divorced women, who have been professional people and who are living in cars. Now that is just so disgraceful. So we need to be able to have diverse communities, cater for them. 1-bedroom houses. We should have medium density development even in rural areas so that people can afford to live in the area that they grew up in. And I think that is probably the biggest thing, our planning of future housing developments, because towns and suburbs are just not like that. Yeah. We need places where that we can gather and chat and build in resilience in our own communities, and it's just not there.
Yeah, that's fantastic parting words. There's so many things that I resonate there, and the medium development in regional areas, that does bring community. It brings full-time populations into CBD areas that could be revitalised and repurposed. And there's some fantastic initiatives happening at the moment for that demographic you've described and to support of that. Particularly in Castlemaine, there's one under works at the moment. For anyone interested to have a look at that. Yes. Thank you, Tad. Yeah, I know.
Well, thanks for the opportunity, guys, and thanks, Jess. It's been a great morning.
Thanks for coming on.
A quick note before we wrap up. The views, discussions and insights shared in this podcast are for entertainment and informational purposes only and not a substitute for professional advice. Please consult with a qualified expert for any specific queries related to your individual needs. Now, with that said, we really hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thank you for listening to the Outlier and Adapt podcast. You can find helpful links and contact information regarding this episode in our show notes. If you like our show, please leave a review and make sure you subscribe to never miss a new episode. If you have further questions for us or want to share some additional feedback, please feel free to DM us on Instagram or Facebook. Until next time on the Outlier and Adapt podcast.